and so to speak. Does that capture it correctly? Okay, great.
Yeah. Pretty much. I would put that under two assumptions. One, we're talking pretty much of the 30-day trial duration or 7-day trial duration. We're talking from the perspective of someone who has landed in the trial duration and has seen return. Those are the two assumptions. So product features like security and compliance that can pretty much bring down the sword from IT to prevent adoption. I'm not talking about those things because we're assuming the stakeholders see value.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And in terms of who in the company is part of that decision, I know you mentioned your role in particular of growth is cross-functional. Obviously products involved in the process. Who, generally speaking, is usually the final decision maker of, to go with vendor A or vendor B?
These days, you will pretty much see this to be a primary decision from product, sometimes engineering, depending on the actual nature of the tool. So the ones that you listed in the survey are pretty much product manager focused or product leader focused. So a CTO could also be a product leader because he also has to make investment decisions on the the product roadmap. But this is different from, let's say, something like Crashlytics or Grafana, for example, or New Relic, which are pretty much for the monitoring of a company's operational services. Like how are the engineering services doing in the cloud? So from that perspective, it's really a product-driven function. You will often see marketing as a pretty important stakeholder, but very rarely, and in fact, I was in one of those situations, marketing is driving the primary and product comes in as a secondary. A lot of number crunching that happens in these organizations is actually driven by finance, but the reason they're not, a stakeholder is because they, because of the nature of their jobs, rely directly on the actual rows in the database, and they don't trust anything else. Like they feel they won't be giving the right financial guidance if they're not going as close to the source as possible. So they prefer to run their analysis even in the presence of these tools with hardcore old school financial reporting, off of SQL. So with these four different stakeholders, product and engineering, depending on the tool, end up being the key decision makers, and their VPs, obviously.
Got it. That's helpful. And in terms of your experience, based on all these different companies, what would you say would be, the top 5 decision criteria or factors that a company considers? I know you touched on this a little bit above, but would just love a bit more detail there in terms of, what do you think the 5 main decision factors are?
So I would say the product features is a broad category, which in itself can break out into a few different things. The innovation in this space there's still a lot to be had. So for example, when behavioral cohorting came along, that became the feature of choice, and everybody started using that as the main feature. A couple of years prior to that, retention graphs was the it feature, and everybody started going after that. A few years before that, and now we're talking 10 years ago, funnels and segmentation, and that's where Google Analytics started coming in. So when it comes to features, what ends up happening is they get commoditized very fast. Just because of the nature of these technologies, everybody can still relatively easily, replicate that given enough time. So obviously, how up to date is the feature set for these products? Do they allow integration with existing data stores? So a lot of companies are often either on-prem or on cloud storage. So you would often hear Amazon Redshift as the OLAP. Can you sort of, import data from Redshift and transfer it to another store called Snowflake, let's say? I'm just using 2 examples. So integration would be a pretty important one. The capabilities for modeling is important because as you have a lot of these tools, percolate in the market, every tool has its own requirements, and people start customize